Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lunenburg Water District Commissioners Meeting Agenda. Today is May 14th, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start off with approving some meeting minutes which are floating around, and warrants. This before, is that Zach Taylor?
Yeah, that's the first one of them going through the 10-wheeler.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
That's Spice Plus.
Yep, first one going through the
Okay.
10-wheeler. That was just changing fluids, doing stuff. They're
Okay.
putting together a full quote
Yeah, for the Kingpins.
for everything, yep.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we accept the minutes of April 9th, 2025.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
We all say aye, I guess that holds, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We-
we're gonna
got-
we're gonna pass over number 3 right now. Let's we'll talk about that later. Number 4 is gonna be reappoint employees.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we reappoint employees of the district: Superintendent Fran G. McNamara, Clerk Treasurer Christina Schwinger, Office Assistant Lisa M. Flag, Water Utility Operators Terry Truax, Philip Martinez, and Ryan Goodman, and Council KP Law.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next up, we have discussion with engineering firm Time Bond regarding the pilot study results for all wells. Take it away, guys.
Great. My name is Lou Sirocco. I'm here with Time Bond. Tonight we have Fred and Derek as well with Time Bond. So we recently finished the piloting work over at the Keating well site. So we've started analyzing those results. We haven't drafted a report yet, and really we tried to just fast forward to the end and try to do some analysis so that we can start talking about, the results of what it all means while we're still working on, compiling a report to submit to DEP. The reason for that being, if the board so chooses to want to reapply for some SRF funding, typically those applications become available to begin pulling the materials together in June. Last year they were due sometime in July. So just starting to get those conversations rolling again if that is the direction the board so chooses. So the table we pulled together has a couple of different scenarios on it. So what we tried to do is pull together both capital and O&M costs for each of those different scenarios. Scenario 1 was the capital O&M to treat the Hickory Hills well by itself. Scenario 2 was to treat the Lancaster Ave wells by themselves. Scenario 3 is to treat the combination of Hickory plus Lancaster Ave at Lancaster Ave. Scenario 4 is to treat the Keating well for PFAS only. And then scenario 5 is to treat the Keating well for both PFAS and to address the hardness that is currently being introduced into the distribution system from the Keating well. Now, a couple things to keep in mind in order to compare this across the board, apples to apples. We took a look at each of these scenarios and said, all right, well, what if we asked each of these scenarios to produce the approximately the district's annual water usage of about 200 million gallons a year. It's just to kind of normalize the different costs between the different scenarios. Of note, though, scenario 2, Lancaster Ave wells, is not able to actually produce the 200 million gallons a year. It doesn't quite get up to that, as it has hydraulic limitations. So other things to kind of keep your mind on. We highlighted the maximum well capacities scenario 1 and 2 because they are not at the typical max day demand that the system sees of about the 1.2 million gallons per day. So scenarios 1 and 2 in and of themselves are only partial solutions when you consider maximum day demands. Scenario 2, as I just mentioned, has a further problem in that it would be unable to meet unable to meet average day demands during the summer times because of hydraulic limitations. Scenario 4, so treating heating well for PFAS only. So we just wanted to point out that what those costs were to address the PFAS. We're not regulatorily required to treat hardness. You're not doing it now. It's our understanding, though, that there are some complaints about the hardness throughout town. And I wanted to point out that under scenario 4, those would persist, and actually they would probably get worse. Right now, Keating supplies about half of that 200 million gallons per year, and the other half is diluted by the Lancaster Ave, which helps dilute the hardness issue. So if you were to only use the Keating well to supply 100% of demands, that problem would be exacerbated under scenario 4, where we're not treating for the hardness. Scenario 5 does address that hardness. However, full-scale treatment of hardness of this magnitude at this scale is not typical. As you can see, the annual O&M costs for that are projected to be quite high. During the pilot, we did pilot tests treating hardness there at Keating. And it was cost prohibitive to continue to run the softening system for the duration of the pilot and still be able to conduct a PFAS pilot. So even at the pilot scale, it was a little bit of a cost prohibition with the budget that we had available. So what we had to do was see what it took to address the hardness at that well site. And then we ran the pilot without treating for hardness and went straight into PFAS treatment. Hoping and planning to see what would happen to the PFAS media if you were to not treat for hardness. Luckily, the pilot showed that that did not have a big impact on your PFAS media. So, we think it is possible to only treat for PFAS and not just the hardness from what we saw during the pilot. Using the information we got from the pilot, though, full scale, part of the reason why some of those costs are so high is, we're projecting almost, 2 tons of salt per day would be needed. Daily brine waste would need to be hauled away and disposed of. So what we can't really capture in our projected numbers there are the non-sustainable aspects of, dealing with constant deliveries of salt and constant hauling away. We can talk about the costs of that, but it's a maintenance issue for sure. And it's problematic to project what disposal costs are going to be going on into the future. So we apply a conservative number to them, but that number could easily become non-conservative in the future. So those are some of the highlights from the numbers that in the table that we pulled together. One other thing of note, we had some additional notes down there. I think the costs associated with Keating We are looking, we did include some costs to put in a redundant well, and by that we mean, it would be a completely separate well, maybe within, say, 50 feet. So in DEP, there's a fairly simple process of permitting a replacement redundant well, so that you can, if you can take the well offline, you've got a backup you can bring, have ready to go immediately. So those costs are included in those scenarios.
In 4 and 5?
In 4 and 5, yes.
Quick question on what type of media were we doing, like the green sand in this pilot test, or?
So for Keating, we didn't have much iron and manganese to speak of that would require any green sand media. So we were basically looking at an ion exchange resin to deal with the softening.
Yep.
But then for the PFAS treatment, we tried a variety of medias, GAC, I think we did an ion exchange, and we also did a novel absorbent that's new to the market and starting to be installed full scale elsewhere, called Fluorozorb. If that means
You mentioned that before.
Did that work out in the end, the Fluorozorb? Because I know at the beginning seemed like the best one.
Right, we did have some problems with that particular media initially. It was requiring frequent backwashing. And then we kind of brainstormed that maybe what happened is we had a bunch of fines that were stuck on the top layer of the media, so it was quickly building up head.
Okay.
So we asked them to scrape those off, and the problem got much better. So we think it may have been just a problem not fully getting out the fines that need to get out of the column. But yes, I think it did perform well. Aside from building up head initially, which we were able to address, I think it did adequately treat for PFAS.
So I think that was the best treatment for all of the sources. So it'd be good if we could move ahead with the similar system.
It did work, I think, on all the pilot testing we did at all the different sites. So it's certainly a potential to maintain a consistency across all different sites. Now, one thing that we are still waiting information on, we did, at the end of this Keating pilot, we did some additional backwash waste analysis and testing. We haven't got those results back yet, so we'll update you further once those do come in.
So just a question on the Keating treatment with the softener. Is that like a very labor intensive? I mean, so are we looking for one additional staff person or two? Or, I mean, did you guys do you, I don't know how familiar you guys are with this kind of process, but I have nothing. I know nothing on it, so I don't know what it would take.
Yep. Given the amount of salt that would be delivered every day and the brine that would be hauled away, in the O&M costs for that scenario, we did include a new full-time operator.
Okay.
The Keating well, the cost of the treatment plant seems low. Does that correspond with the level of PFAS that's in that? Or why does that seem lower compared to?
Yeah,
Manganese.
the other treatment systems have
the iron-
pre-treatment systems.
Or
Yeah.
have the iron and manganese, so this is just PFAS only, and the hardness that is probably our number one complaint would still remain.
Right.
And I think we looked at trying to keep these all on a level, but is there any potential for funding for Keatings for SRF money?
I mean,
Or for any of the projects, to be
Right,
honest with you,
right.
if we can.
the funding has gotten much more competitive. From what we've seen in this last round of funding cycle, unless your Massachusetts PFAS 6 levels are above 10, you're not going to make the funding list. We saw this on a project of ours that went in with up below 10 laboratory data. We found out that it didn't make the list. the town went back and they found some more data that we were unaware of that showed that it was above the 10. So we said, oh, wow, that would have been great to have submitted. So we, during the public comment period, we submitted sworn testimony that we had other data, just just to put it on record, not expecting, because we hardly ever see any project move from the draft to the final. It's kind of a rare occurrence, but in this case, that project did move up to the final funded list because it showed it had PFAS above the 10. So I think they're looking at it as a pretty hard line, and they give those types of projects far more points to get them above that cutoff line. But every year it's becoming more competitive as there's fewer dollars available.
Is there still a
So
chance anywhere else for that? If Keating's is not something that would qualify, is there another spot that may qualify? Are we still?
yeah, I
Are they
mean,
mad at us for not accepting it the last time?
the Hickory as well as obviously would still score well, and I think it would outscore lots of other projects based on what we've seen. So that would be your best bet.
Okay.
That one.
Well, to get
get SRF
to
funding.
at least apply,
Yeah.
if we're gonna do that, and just quickly, I mean, where were we before? Do we remember what the numbers were the last time? Just
For
for
the-
Dash it real
For
quick.
the,
When we were gonna do the combination before,
it's same numbers.
same numbers? Okay. Alright. I'm good, you guys?
I gotta just, I don't know if you know this answer, I'm not holding you to it or anything, but, do you off the top of your head know what the Massachusetts deadline, is for these chain of events? Like, when do you need to have your treatment and plan in place, and when it needs to be implemented? Do you have any of that information?
Yeah, so there was some new information released today, and Derek, I think you best speak to that because you came to your attention
Yeah,
first.
last year when the EPA released the new drinking water standards for PFOA, PFOS, and created the hazard index, they had projected a plan of beginning to establish your body of data, essentially having you do a running annual average of sampling, establishing whether or not you would meet that new primary drinking water standard. That would begin in 2027, and in that rule, you would need to be compliant by 2029, otherwise you'd be in violation. The expectation is Mass DEP as a primacy state would adopt those same type of schedules. Ultimately, Mass DEP will take EPA's and make either the same or a stricter requirement. Today, the EPA announced that they are maintaining the PFOA and PFOS standard. They're reconsidering the hazard index. In terms of Lunenburg's water, the PFOA, PFOS standards are the problem, so nothing will change there. But instead of 2029, it's been projected out to 2031.
Okay.
So they added 2 more years of compliance. So believe that 2027 date, around then, they'll still be having you begin the more frequent sampling and establishing your running annual average. And if that average shows that you're above 4 parts per trillion on PFOA or PFOS, by 2031 you need to be in compliance.
Okay. So by that 2027 number, if you're above the PFOA, the number 4 there, is that when you need to have some sort of at least plan in place, like saying like this is, while the plant may not be built and running, we have a, approved and contractor lined up to build this in 2029, making it up.
It would certainly help to be prepared to have a facility running by that 2031 date. So
Okay.
beginning a construction project in 2027, 2028 timeframe would kind of put you on that pathway to have your plant online by the compliance deadline.
Okay.
And even though a plan might not be regulatory required, it's been our experience that DEP will start asking, what is your plan? Do you have a plan?
Sure.
Are you guys planning for this? So.
And all of this is subject to DEP's review of EPA, and they may say, no, we're not going to allow that. We want to get out in front of this. We want to maintain.
So they may
2029.
change it back to 2029.
Yeah, very possible
Sure.
that Mass DEP has taken the lead in regulating these substances for many years now, And, their charge is to be equal to or stricter than EPA. So now that EPA set a guideline, it's up to DEP to decide whether or not they want to meet that or become more strict.
So every time it gets pushed forward, the time frame pushed forward, the funding gets harder to get and the cost goes up.
So the current funding is through the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed several years ago. That committed the magnitude of PFAS remediation funding that we've been seeing through 2026. So this funding application in July is that last round of guaranteed funding. It'd be up to Congress to reauthorize that bill and establish additional funding for future years.
All right, but as right now, that's the scenario. Less funding, bigger cost.
It's quite very much so that the funding is getting harder and costs are going up. Absolutely,
Way up.
Now, so
absolutely.
hypothetically, residents say, we don't wanna spend this money, we don't care, we like the flavor of PFAS in our water. What's the bite? At what point, is somebody gonna come down on us for doing nothing?
I would say right now, with reading the tea leaves as best we can, I'd say that date sounds like it's about 2031 right now.
So
you
2031, if we're not, that's when, then, do they shut you down? Do
You
they-
get a note. You get a administrative consent order from Mass DEP, basically saying you need to come up with a plan, and there may be fines associated with not meeting certain statutory deadlines. They come up with a framework and essentially force you to do something through legal action. And as part of that deadline, like as mentioned, establishing that running annual average, by not having a treatment plant online until you'd be out of compliance, the years before that are being used to establish your running annual average are going to get counted against you. So if your plant goes online in 2031, you're going to have several years before that will count against you. I'm sure that if you have a situation in place where it's coming online, I'm sure they would work with you to avoid some sort of legal action. But I think the intent of the regulation is to have folks basically move before the end of the decade here.
I feel bad for the commissioners that are gonna be sitting here when that happens, because I don't know what the deal
Well,
is.
let's get the people vote.
Yeah.
What's the typical time frame? Let's say this summer we were going out to bid for the treatment plant, whatever one. What are we looking at for a time frame to construct that?
Construction is somewhere between 2.5 years typically. Like to say about 600 to 800 days of active construction when you sign a notice to proceed with a contractor to cutting the ribbon.
All right, so for us to meet that 2031 deadline, we really need to get our ball together.
We need to have
probably
something
3
of-
years before that.
Something, yeah, so something needs to be approved in place by late 26, early 27. Because, at that point, you're talking engineering and all sorts of things, and whatever financing may be available at that time, and obviously, construction costs are not gonna go down, so.
You guys are talking about getting this all rated and everything. Nobody's talking about where the money's coming from. How's this gonna get passed at our annual meetings?
Well,
You know,
we gotta take
we've got the same
the
problem
information we
now.
have and,
well, I know that, but,
yep.
we don't have any information. Well, we got information, but we know what it is. So how's that gonna work out? We don't get any money at our annual meetings, but yet the DEP is gonna come down on the commissioners for not doing what they have to do when it's not the commissioner's fault. It's the residents' fault. How's that gonna pan out?
Yeah,
Still comes at us.
it happens from time to time, and that is, as Derek had mentioned, that's when they go through that administrative consent process where they get the lawyers involved and.
So it wouldn't go against you guys.
Right.
I mean,
It
if
goes
you
against
brought
the
it to
water
the
district.
people
Right.
and
Right.
they voted it down, that you guys did your obligation.
Who would it go against?
Goes against the
Everyone, because
district.
if they fine us, then
Everybody has to.
we're gonna have to pass that on to the
Well,
customers.
no,
So the idea is we come up with a plan
Yeah.
to treat this.
Let's hopefully we come up with some creative way to the town agrees with, and we
Yeah, I agree.
can fund it. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot here. I definitely appreciate all this information. We got a lot of work to do.
So that's what we brought in Nicole. So,
I
so our thinking is, and I'm not sure if we talked to all of you, I know I've mentioned to Mark, but our thinking was is that we do a survey to the people, everybody. And we pick the options, so hopefully today maybe we all put our heads together and say, hey, let's do these options, this option, this option, this option. Send it to the people. Say, okay, which direction do you want us to head? And the largest number, we go to Ty and Bond, say apply for SRF funding for this project. So I kind of think that would be the best route, because I mean, we talked about having a meeting with options. I know Mark has mentioned that many times, options.
Yep.
But if we had that meeting, it's a non-binding referendum anyway, so it'd probably be easier if we just do the survey. So we could have Nicole do a whole little spreadsheet with all the facts, send it to everybody. Here's a little link, go to the survey site, pick your whatever options, and
You're not tied to one meeting at that point.
No, I
If
think it's a
we have
very
a
good
special
idea.
meeting we don't get a good sampling of the entire
Right.
public, and whether to me, unfortunately, the burden of this goes to the water takers that pay a bill.
I agree.
But it does affect everybody in the community, so we have to figure out, how we grab the best sampling of people, because I could be on a well, which I'm not, but I could be on a well, but I have kids that go into the school
Right.
system. They are still drinking the town water. Do they have a voice or not? The town should, because the town's gonna take the town's portion of the bill is also, so.
Right.
But I think having Nicole on board and trying to get the largest sampling from the public that we can.
I'd love
the
that.
best way we can, so that we can figure out a way to move forward, because a non-binding thing at a meeting that's scheduled on one night in the
Right,
middle
no,
of
I
a
agree.
week is not gonna do it. And this is a big,
It's a very big decision
it's
for
a
the
big,
town.
it's a big thing.
And we're also on a time crunch.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
If that's what they want to go
Yeah,
for.
I mean-
If they want to apply, we got
Yeah.
less than a month.
Yeah, we don't have
to
a lot of
decide.
time to apply for SRF funding for
Yeah.
this year, and I'm cautiously optimistic that I don't even think we have time. That's my personal.
Yeah, we'll have to. I really think so.
I think if we do the survey, we
Yeah.
do it quickly.
Yeah.
I think we have time. So as long as these guys know in the beginning part of June, would the middle of June be okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to push it out everywhere we can in the
Today
public.
today is mid-May. So.
I know, I'm
So-
bad, I didn't fill out the Marshall Park survey,
Right.
but, and probably should, because I had some concerns about it. It's just trying to get everybody to at least get some input in, so.
Would you like to take some questions from the public? I'm asking you.
We're here, we can do our best to answer
Well, I'll
questions.
open it up to the public if anybody has any questions or fire away, Mr. Fortune.
Well, that's right. John Fortune, 50 Hemlock Drive. Thanks for this data, this is great. The data behind this, some of the numbers and everything that you were actually seeing, the PFAS numbers specifically,
Mhm.
so I actually have a couple of questions, but do you have, let me ask this correctly, the Keating's well, the data that I have seen on the Keating's well doesn't show that it fails the 4 parts per trillion consistently. It's up or down or whatever. I'm curious what your data shows.
Yeah, Fred, I don't have it off the top of my head, do you remember what it was from the pilot?
At least during the pilot, it was just over the 4 ppm limit, with,
PPT.
PPT, my bad. With maybe 1 or 2 samples just below the 4. So it consistently exceeded that 4, but the PFOA was the only compound exceeding the regulatory limit during the pilot study.
Before.
Yep.
And the same thing with so the same question for the Lancaster wells, sorry. That way. Do you remember what those were? Because again, depending on what that mix was, we had talked about that a number of times.
I
One
wanna say
well was good, one well was not.
I want to say it was very similar, not significantly higher than 4, but consistently over
But as you mentioned, the nuance of the Lancaster Ave wells is that there are several different wells with all varying different concentrations. So the matter of what wells are being used, the hydraulic restrictions in the summer, whether those wells are available to blend, I think that's a little bit more complicated than heating where there's just a single well.
Correct,
Can I
correct.
ask?
Correct me if I'm wrong, the best producing well has the highest limit down on Lancaster Ave?
Correct. It exceeded the 20.
Yeah, so the highest producing well out of the wells down there is well
Exceeds
over.
20, is that what you said?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and just so the testing, the pilot testing, we alternated 2 wells at a time.
Yeah,
So they didn't test this particular well and then this well. It was wells 5 and 2 like we run them now, and wells 1 and 4. So they didn't see what each individual well was. So as you just stated, well number 5 is the only well in Lancaster Ave that can run continuously during the summer period, and that one exceeded the 20 parts per
Right.
trillion, the old regulation.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Absolutely.
Okay. Scenario 6, that's not on here, so crazy. So I'm throwing out a scenario 6, and that is because we were talking about the hardness. And the way that we deal with that today is we blend the wells, right? The Keating's well and the Lancaster wells run together, oftentimes. But should there be a scenario 6 where we actually pipe the water from the Lancaster well to Keating's and put a plant there? So I think you talked about a $7 million number, and I'm going off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. About like a $7 million number to pump from Hickory Hills to Lancaster. It's probably a half a mile or a mile longer, I don't know for sure, to run it the other way, to go from Lancaster to Keating's. Is that a reasonable thing to do? If your only thing is to try to get the PFAS out of the water?
Well, are you talking about PFAS or are you talking about hardness?
No, PFAS, because that's the cheapest thing we have here, right? So $21 million, scenario 4,
Yep.
just for Keating's is $21 million.
Yep.
We pull out just the PFAS. And we talked about hardness being a problem. If you
Gotcha.
add the Lancaster wells into that same place, we have the exact same water we have today,
Right.
out of a location there that has a treatment plant.
Yep.
So that is a reasonable thing to do, I would guess. If you pipe the water from Lancaster to Keating's,
Yep.
and adds maybe $6 or $7 million to really have exactly what we have today.
Yep, you would not change any of the hardness issues currently seen in the system.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's doable to have a combined treatment plant at the key.
The complexity is even though the Lancaster does have lower levels of iron and manganese than Hickory Hills, that would potentially drive the need for pretreatment for both sites if you're having to treat for iron and manganese before you do PFAS. And then we wouldn't necessarily know the impact of blending those two sources that are separate on how that hardness might impact the PFAS media. That might be a concern where different pHs in the water, different water chemistries mixing together may end up creating an unknown consequence of treating them together.
Right.
It certainly could be pilot tested, it'd be very complicated, but it would.
But is that what your pilot test did when you talk about the Hickory Hills and the Lancaster well? Is that what you, because those obviously are different locations as well?
We did, because those are similar treatment issues in terms of manganese being the predominant pretreatment issue ahead of PFAS. We did what we could to simulate that blending and looking at the water quality. Because Keating didn't have manganese treatment as part of its pilot testing, how that then influences that hardness may cause some additional unintended consequences.
Hey, I don't even know if you can do this or not, but as the Lancaster Ave wells sit right now, if you pump the water out of there as they sit with all their impurities and problems with it, and pumped it to Keating's, and we had a tank there, and you put your PFAS free water into a tank and just dump whatever you had in Lancaster Ave in there, it's going to dilute the Lancaster Ave PFAS numbers technically in half, I'm guessing here, and then put that in the system. Is that?
So blending is a short-term solution that Mass DEP has allowed over the last several years. The maximum contaminant level goal, which is not enforceable, is 0.
Sure.
And the 4 parts per trillion level is established based on a reasonable quantitative level. That's what we can measure reliably, the goal is 0, so the long-term, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, as analytical chemistry changes, if you're not targeting 0, if you're targeting 2, that may become now a liability where you need a treatment plant. It may set you up for a combined treatment plant later on where you've piped them all together, and then now, they've dropped that level from 4 to 2, or maybe they never drop the level from 4 to 2. Generally, in our conversations with DEP and with other communities, blending is not a long-term scenario. Folks that are blending currently to meet the 20 parts per trillion limit are being asked what their long-term plan is to meet treatment goal, to treat that water. I would expect that if that 20 becomes 4, that same conversation can be had with you on what's your approach to try to remove all PFAS from the water.
Gotcha.
The EPA, in addition to the MCLG of 0, they've established that health advisory of quadrillionth of parts per Q, basic PPQ, and even a significant order of magnitude less, essentially stating that there's no safe level of PFOA and PFOS in drinking water.
I am tracking what you put down, without a doubt. Anything else, John?
I do, but I'll let others go first.
I just have a question on the data. 2 questions. We were speaking earlier about, I think it was Fred was speaking about what the wells are coming in with for PFAS during the pilot. Whether they're above 4, you said sometimes they were under 4, but mostly they were around 5. Did I understand you correctly? Yes, okay. Is that data, Fran, available? Like when we go to the state sites where you report it, do we have that data available on the state sites that people can access and look at?
Not the data that was collected on the pilot test. Anything that we requested to take for a sample from Mass DEP
Yes.
is available.
And so that would jive with what these gentlemen are saying? Would be this-
I never saw a level less than 4. All of them were higher than 4, so that
Okay,
was
follow-up
never-
question. 4 is allowable, correct?
Less than.
4 is allowable.
There's nuance in terms of the running annual average. The regulation is 4.0, so anything quantitatively less than 4.0 is considered 0 in the average.
Yes.
So, to meet the goal, you're supposed to be below 4. Not
I thought the regulation was 4 parts per
trillion.
billion. Isn't it?
Trillion.
Trillion. 4 parts per trillion. So if your running averages are 4 parts per trillion, you are acceptable in the law.
If you had a perfect 4.0, I don't know exactly how. I wouldn't be able to tell you if that would be acceptable. I think the nuance of hitting a complete perfect 4.0 would be very hard.
Well, no, if you had a 3.8, a 4.1,
That- the nuance-
3.9,
if
and
you
your
were-
average is 4.0, that meets the regulation of the law.
I believe that is correct.
Okay, that was my first question. My second question is one of semantics. I'm hearing a lot of, I believe in the future. It's my understanding in the future. I'd like to know exactly what is the expectation from Mass DEP. And I've heard several people say Mass DEP might want these new standards. Do we have any website we can go to see where Mass DEP stands on these new standards and not have it be a hypothetical topic that we're discussing? We're discussing millions and millions of dollars. For millions and millions of dollars, I would like a definitive statement from Mass DEP on what is going to happen. To spend millions on, I believe they usually is a little unsettling. So can you give me a website that I can go to find out what Mass DEP is actually going to require?
No, we cannot tell you specifically how they will interpret EPA's rules. We can tell you that as a primacy organization, Mass DEP will meet EPA's rules.
Yes.
Or will develop their own rules that are stricter.
Of course, that's their 2 options.
Miss
Also-
Pease,
Oh.
so, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we are gonna keep things
Okay.
rolling. Your question is one I have brought up also, and I'm in full agreement that before we really push all this stuff forward, I would like to see Mass General Law stating compliance by this, by meaning this. It is something I've been looking for myself, so don't need to belabor that. We will,
Got it.
I'm with you 100%. I'd like to see the ironclad law of what is required.
Thank you. Those are my two questions.
On that note, I've spoken to DEP, this was months ago, and they said, oh, you're gonna hear about it in weeks.
Right.
And then that was months ago,
So,
so.
I agree with you
So
100%.
we all agree with
Yeah.
you. It'd be nice if this was right there on a piece of
Yeah.
paper and
Yeah.
and we all could.
And I understand, and I don't think it's your fault that we haven't heard yet, and if I came across that way,
Oh,
that's
no,
not what
no.
I was,
I
not
got
what
you.
I was intending. I just think I'd like to have a definitive, and if there was a website I could go to get that, I would like that website so I could go to it to get that
What we
information.
can tell you is that with the new press release, the couple press releases from the EPA that has come out today and a couple weeks ago, the current administration, the new administrator of the EPA has reaffirmed the 4 parts per trillion levels. They've called into question some of the other regulatory hazard index, but they've reaffirmed the 4 parts per trillion.
And that 4 parts per trillion is a running average of 4 parts per trillion.
Correct.
So it is not just one reading, it is
Correct.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think what I'm getting out of the whole conversation is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're probably looking for something from DEP that says, you guys have to treat your water.
Correct.
You guys don't have to treat your water.
Correct.
So that's
Absolutely.
kind of, I understand where Ms. Pease is coming from. If we are gonna meet an acceptable level, and people are willing to live with that, then that's where we're gonna stay, cause it's a lot of money. And if we don't have to, we also know levels change. They don't normally go down. But I think we're looking for DEP to tell us, you have to do this. And maybe even a little bit further, because we haven't talked about, when we start this, where the end should be. Because we haven't talked about redundancy in our system. And what is DEP, if they could weigh in on that as well, you have to treat and you have to meet the redundancy standard. And the redundancy standard is this, your max day. If they can tell us those two things, then I think we need to move forward.
Right.
If they can't tell us those two things, then the public's gonna push back on us on spending money. That's kind of what I gather. Does anybody disagree with that statement at all? We don't wanna spend money if we don't have to. We need somebody to tell us, we have to treat this stuff, and when we are done treating, this is the quantity of water we expect you to have in your system available to you from our regulatory authority.
1 second. Nicole,
So
yes?
I do have a question, and this is for the Ty and Bond folks that might help clarify things. Historically speaking, and I know it's that by law, DEP has to adopt the EPA standard. Historically speaking, has, in your knowledge, has the DEP ever just said, okay, we're gonna accept this law, or do they go more stringent?
I think the unfortunate answer is PFAS has been different than most regulatory environments, and I think EPA and Mass DEP have taken approaches that are different than most other contaminants. So trying to predict political will of the state is something that I don't think we can really comment on. I think from the anecdotes that we've heard, I think that DEP recognizes the burden that this is bringing on to communities and wants to find the easiest and least burdensome solutions. But they're committed to maintaining public health throughout the Commonwealth, and they'll work with their scientists and regulators to develop the best program for the Commonwealth.
So just for reference, federal EPA regulation was 70 pounds per trillion. Massachusetts the one that cut it
Right.
to 20, so.
Yeah.
Now the federal's at 4.
Federal's going 4, so Massachusetts has to be 4 or less.
And to reiterate, the federal government established floor based on economic evaluation, they say, as well as a quantitative level. But they have published these maximum contaminant level goals, which are 0 PFOA and PFOS.
They want 0.
Yeah. This is what asking.
All right. There was a little bit of what I heard, confusion about the max contamination level. It's 4.0, so if you're at 4.0, that's acceptable.
I believe that is correct. As I mentioned, the complexities of
Sure. I was just
variability
clearing
in
up that point.
sampling, yeah.
Do we have to be below 4? No, you can be at 4, is how it's written today. I wanted to ask if you have any insight into the current lawsuits challenging the EPA for the PFAS and PFOA levels that are going forward.
At least in the most recent press release, the EPA has reaffirmed the commitment to challenge the lawsuits against their 4 parts per trillion levels. I think the administration has been generally more reserved to establish new regulations, but they have, as they mentioned in their press release today, they're reevaluating some of the more complex elements of it, such as the hazard index. But they have doubled down and reaffirmed that the PFOA and PFOS regulations they will fight, and they would like to push that forward and establish that throughout the country.
I'm trying to get clarification on it, because my read was that the administration was going to let it be decided in court, and the lawsuit was to remove the restricted 4.0 and try to get a higher level.
Certainly, if the
That's
courts
the nuances of the
certainly if the
case.
courts overturn the EPA's ability to establish the regulation, the administration would follow suit.
And I believe that was their
Administrator
statement.
Zeldin is committed to this problem. In Congress, the EPA administrator was one of the sponsors of the original PFAS action plan, and he is from the press releases we've read that he's committed to removing PFAS from drinking water. So unless the courts step in and remove that power, it appears the EPA is pushing as hard as they can to remove PFOA and PFOS from drinking water.
Appreciate your input.
Yeah, I think Mr. Atkinson. Oh,
Okay, sorry. You had mentioned that the redundancy well at Keating, you talked about having a redundancy well there. In Lancaster, there is one well that's not working and hasn't been for quite some time. Was there any evaluation on that well at all? Curious, what had been shut down?
Not during, it's offline right now. I don't
Basically
even think there's a
offline,
pump in there, or I'm not sure. It wasn't available to us to evaluate.
Okay. Was there any other discussion about more wells or redundancy wells at Lancaster Ave? There are 4 active, I think?
Correct.
4 active. It's a pretty good sized site. I don't know if there's space there for more. I just was curious because you talked about a redundancy well in Keating.
Right. Lancaster Ave is a shallow aquifer, and I think it's got a lot of straws in it already. There's always optimism to try to maximize that efficiency in the withdrawal. From experience, it's challenging. You can chase your tail. You'll find the new source, and then after a couple of years, you're right back to where you started. So it's certainly stuff it's ongoing. It's been tried in the past, and continue to try to maximize the output of that site for sure.
Okay, thanks.
So the way it was explained to me, Mr. Fortune, is if you take the supply that's there in the ground, and we have 4 now.
Right.
4 active wells.
Yeah, and you add another straw, you might still not get any more water out of it. You're just gonna take it out of the ground faster. Whereas having one straw in one spot and being somewhere in a different aquifer, I think what you said, we're close to tapped on how much water we can really get out of there successfully.
Yeah, you'll find a good producer, and then all of a sudden
Then
closest
something else
well just
shuts
dips
down.
off
Right.
faster.
I think it's like going to the restaurant and getting a scorpion bowl with your buddies, right? You all can put a straw.
Everybody gets a straw in it.
But I feel like the Keating's well is like sticking straws in a fish tank. I think it's a more robust aquifer to
Well, I think you
drive.
said it was 90 feet deep or something like that.
Yeah. And this isn't to get more water out of Keating's. This is just if this well's offline, this well is producing.
Right.
So you don't lose you know, your ability to pump.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yes.
good distinction where the permitted withdrawal of the heating site would not change. The ability to have a redundant pump pulling water out of or a redundant straw for the analogy to pull that same amount of permitted water would just allow the additional resiliency.
Right, I was looking at your 200 gallons, 200 million gallons a year.
Yep.
Number, right?
Yep.
We know that we just ran the Lancaster wells for 4 months by themselves without Keating, something like that,
Yeah.
some number. So for some portion of the
winter.
year,
In
winter
In the
time,
winter,
in the
yeah,
winter.
in the winter,
it's,
yeah.
it, you know,
Less draw.
it can
We
be,
need another
it
well.
runs, is enough there.
Just a little knowledge, when the pump test was done in 1985, or 84, for well number 5, it took several feet of water from well number 1 that wasn't even running. So that's why when we run wells together, we run 1, 5, and 2.
Right.
Because
It's
we don't.
separated in space, I would
Yes,
guess.
so, because you're drawing from the same spot. So if you look at well number 1 and say well number 1 and well number 4, we have well level monitoring. So you watch that well, the well started up, you can see the water level in the well, which is probably only have like 5 feet of water in the well, even in the summertime, wintertime. And you'll see that drop the whole time. You start it back, you let it sit for 12 hours, you start it back up, it didn't come back to where it started. It dropped down a little bit. So when we cycle them, we do let it return to its original capacity,
Recharge, yeah.
recharge. So if we don't have another source that we are capable of doing that, and I've seen it, we're down to 4 hours of water. And well 1 and well 4, I've shown that Mr. Emke, I gave all the graphs. He says, you definitely have a problem. I can clearly see that. So if anybody wants to see that, I'd be happy to dig them up and reprint them. So you could actually see the start and stop and say, hey, how long can you do that? And you'll see the issue.
Right.
And then we do have well number 2, it only pumps 70 gallons a minute, which really won't affect much. But even at 70 gallons a minute, when we did a pump test, it turned yellow, brown, bacteria. So that well can't run 24 hours a day either. So it goes back to, yeah, you can put some more straws in there, but if those water tables are dropping like this already, you add another straw, 200 feet away, that's going to drop even more. So eventually, your time of available water is shortening. So.
Yeah. Good.
I have a question. So, is there any regulation? So, we've always done this PFAS testing. And we're doing it like at the well, at a hydrant right outside the well. We're taking it from right there. Is there something that says we have to take that reading there? Like, if I went to a spigot here, or I went to a hydrant somewhere in town, and took a reading there, I guarantee you it's going to be different than what I see at the well site. I just feel that all the water that we pump up into these tanks, and then they're like, what is actually being distributed? Like,
We could test that. So when we do our sampling, the DEP gives us a sampling plan.
sure.
And then right on it, it'll say finished water, raw water. So in many cases, we do the raw, like Keating's, we'll do the raw water.
Yep.
Hey, what's coming out of the well, then the finished water, what's going to the people. So we'll see that kind of thing. But we've never tested like what's at the tank,
Well, like
what's the
if
diluted.
we turned on the tap right here, like, and
what do
sent
we
that
got?
in, I mean, I'm just curious, after it's gone to tanks, mixed, and sent back out, what is it? I mean, I know we're close on these numbers, but like if this thing is consistently coming back at a 3,
But what about the
It
people
depends
on
where
that
you-
line?
where you
well, that's,
If you're
well,
right
that's,
Keating,
no, I
that's-
understand that, but
before it
let's
gets
say
to
you went outside of Keating's, 2 houses up the road,
Yeah.
go to the first hydrant. I'm just,
Yeah.
I might be crazy here, but like I'm just curious, like, is there a requirement to take it there, or
It's there.
okay?
We can take wherever we want, but for the testing requirements from Mass DEP, they tell you exactly where
They
to
want
take
the
it.
point of entry.
Am I hearing that our wells aren't adequate? Is that what we're talking about here?
As far as.
As far as supplying the water we need? And a
Well,
constant supply?
Well, that Lancaster's, that's why we had issues. That's why we put it in the Hickory Hills well.
Yeah, okay.
And then that led to the
So now what we're talking about, the only solution that I can see is more water, more wells. You're not gonna get any more water out of the ones we got.
Well, we have water everywhere. It's just usable, clean water is the issue.
Well, then you got a 10-year span to be, when you start
appropriating property and getting a well done, it's 10 years before you get it online.
Right.
And
So,
then
I
you don't
mean,
know
but-
about treatment or anything.
Yeah, so I mean, and then we could pump up some wells that are just as bad as the ones we got. I mean, we're gonna need a treatment plant no matter what, even if we get more sources of water, though, if they're bad PFAS, those are gonna have to go into the treatment plant too. We're probably gonna need 2 treatment plants before we're done in the next 20, 25 years. I mean, is that, am I crazy about that, or I mean, is?
No, I think if the regulations go as what we, as Jones says, we think they're gonna go, which is where, great if someone put it on a piece of paper. But, yeah, I would agree, if it goes to what we think it's gonna do, then, yeah. I mean,
I mean, we need more water, we need more wells, and we need a treatment plant to put them wells into.
We don't need more water. We have plenty of water. We just need to make it suitable to use.
No, we don't have plenty of water from what Franny's been
Well,
telling me.
no,
And this is talking
he's saying if
strictly
it was
at Lake.
only Lancaster Ave.
Only
if
Lancaster.
you
Only
didn't have
Lancaster
Keating's.
Ave. Right. So
Well,
you
if
take,
something happens to Keating, what else have we got?
Nothing, that's the.
Okay.
We have well sites. There's other well sites.
Well, I don't know where they are. Do you know where they are, Fran?
they're getting duplexes built all over.
Well, we have the ones that are already approved through Mass DEP, just like Woody said, the water
Yeah.
quality needs to be
I
addressed.
don't think we
Right.
need another well. We just need to figure out how to handle this whole thing and move from there.
Well, I think we need more wells. More water.
More water.
There's no problem,
Well,
there's
there's-
nothing wrong with having more water.
I think we did. All right. Do you guys have anything else for the time bond? Chris, do you have anything? Any,
One last question.
you gonna make it quick, Joe?
I will, please. Mr. Fortune suggested a scenario number 6, which had not been investigated. And if we're gonna be spending this amount of money, I'd like to see the numbers here for scenario number 6, on the list. And is that a feasible thing that you can come up with?
Who was 6 again?
Didn't you say you would need to do a whole new pilot study, cause you're mixing
Oh,
iron and
yeah, yeah,
manganese
yeah.
and
same
hardness
level, yeah,
and
the
PFAS,
same
you would
level
need to do a
of,
whole new.
the same level of degree that we've planned these scenarios. These are all post-pilot studies. I think the unintended consequences of mixing those 2 sources. We certainly could look at the map and figure out the length of transmission main and see if there's any major concerns with piping the water. I think the treatment element would be a little bit more complex to put a hard number to operational costs of that well. But we certainly could look at the length of a transmission main, the cost of a transmission main.
But you did, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
It's okay.
So you did have the scenario where you looked at the Hickory Hills well, I mean, you looked at it separately, right? You looked at the Lancaster well, you took the data, you put it together and said, okay, this is what would happen. You have the Lancaster data, you have the Keating data, and I'm asking a question which you hadn't thought of, but I think can you go back and look at putting those 2 together, and what would the scenario be?
Well, the difference there is that we took the piloting system that was at Hickory and we transplanted it to Lancaster Ave and ran Lancaster Ave's water through it. And we were able to replicate
So you took
effective
the exact
treatment,
same-
the exact same treatment system.
Okay.
So
And
we
you
didn't,
used a
you know,
different one in Keating.
we didn't bring that same system down to Keating. We used a completely different one because it has different water quality. And we did think about that option, but because of the large difference in water quality, mainly because of the hardness, it wasn't an attractive scenario. Because it would be a complex, it would be a treatment system that requires a variety of things individual to each site, then all combined together. It wasn't as efficient as taking 2 similar water qualities and combining those.
I think the original thought process behind it is that Lancaster Ave and the Hickory's wells had similar water quality problems that could be treated with one media type of going through the PFAS system, where Keating's it's separate. That PFAS.
Well, the pretreatment system.
Yeah,
Right.
to treat it would be very different set of chemicals, et cetera. It's kind of like the water quality differences was not
Right, and
not impossible, but it wasn't compatible.
Can we come up with a hypothetical scenario 6? do we have enough data to, hypothetical,
Yeah, we can
it
go with
might
a
not,
hypothetical one. It won't be as,
But we
we
wouldn't
won't
be
be
able to
as
apply for
like
funding, cause we don't know, DEP would
sure
never-
about, you know, as we are the other ones that we pilot tested, but we can certainly,
Yeah, part of doing manganese treatment is typically you're adjusting the
We'll have to
pH.
talk about that
By
when
adjusting the
we
pH,
pull
you
the
then
public,
open yourself up
if they
to
care about funding.
precipitation of hardness. When you treat for Keating, you don't have to touch the pH before you treat for PFAS, but if you were to combine it with Lancaster and do manganese treatment on the full set, you may have to do pre-treatment pH adjustments, which would then exacerbate the hardness prior to PFAS treatment.
May I speak? Question on that?
How many more, Joe? No, I'm just kidding. Of course you can, of course you can.
It's a good question.
Have you ever had a treatment plant or ever seen or heard of a treatment plant where, for instance, the Lancaster water came into the treatment plant and the manganese and iron were treated, and then it was mixed with the Keating water, and then the whole thing was treated for PFAS? So you end up with water with the same hardness level we have now, but the manganese and iron was separately treated first prior to mixing it in the same plant. I mean, you got the plant there, you just
Certainly.
have a pre-treat right there for this water coming in and then mix it with everything for PFAS.
Certainly, but
So that
when
could-
the waters are combined, the pH levels may be different, which would then potentially impact the hardness, so.
Yeah, but
Lanca-
pH is easy to adjust, right?
But how it affects the hot water
we'd
is a
have
huge
to,
issue.
yeah, we'd have to almost add another, we'd have to suppress the pH before we combined it in order to maybe prevent it from
Right.
precipitating out on the PFAS media.
Yeah,
So
but
it
use
becomes a
all
very
that
complex.
sodium hydroxide down in the Hickory Hill building.
Potassium.
Well, no, yeah, it would have to be some sort of acid.
So my comment, because I mean, original talks were to bring the Keating well to Lancaster Ave and build a treatment plant because of all their discussions of the total different treatments needed. My big concern is we don't have 4 wells on Lancaster Ave that can run 24 hours a day. So you're going to go and spend all this millions of dollars of water for pretty much one well that can pump 200 gallons, well number 5. That's your only consistent well in that area. So all the other wells, to me, are you're taking a pretty big gamble for it. And who's to say there's going to be adequate water in there to dilute it, to do the Keating well.
Okay.
So if you do this, what they're talking, you made a full commitment that Lancaster Ave is pumping this much water every day to mix with this water. And I don't think it's a good idea at all.
Now, doesn't that come back to just about what I said a little while ago?
Oh, well,
We need more water.
yeah.
No? I mean, nobody agrees with that,
you can always use more water.
You only use more.
but we need more water to do what we have to do here or try to do here with, like Fran just said, mixing this and mixing that, and
Lancaster Ave could use more water.
Yes.
Yes.
that's what I wanted to hear.
Could we get more water? Could it use more? Yes.
That's it, pump it right out of the stream.
That's a different premise.
Yeah, get it out of Pepperell, it's overflowing the banks down there.
That's what's cranking right now.
Just to see. I mean, obviously it's much more complex and just based on what we have.
So just I know you haven't run the numbers, but would you be taking the Lancaster Ave number and adding it to the Hickory, up to the Keating's number? Because you're pretty much gonna be building 2 treatment plants there. That Lancaster's doing this, Keating's doing this.
We'll look at it, I mean, there's some site savings on building 2 separate buildings, but you're building a tree, it's similar to looking at the 2 Hickory and Lancaster versus the Hickory and Lancaster, it's not a complete additive.
Yeah, double.
There's some, depending on the distances, I don't know the specific route, but, state road, bridge crossings, like that, how many rivers are we crossing? That is a huge factor in terms of the complexity of a transmission main.
So do you guys, when you do this kind of study, do you look at the water system infrastructure, like what we have for water mains? In this particular case, like the Keating, we have one 16-inch water main feeding that area. We just had a fire last week and they blew up a 12-inch ductile line main. So, and it was right near Reservoir Road. So if they blow up that main, this way we're down for 30 hours.
Yeah.
Because it was like 3 broken.
Part of the combined treatment plants that we've done in the past typically also have had finished water mains associated with it to then redisperse the water. You've got water coming in on the east side at one site and the west side at another site. the way the hydraulics in your system has been set up that way over many years to allow the water to flow, you know, partly here, partly there. Now all the water is coming from one side. There may be additional finished water mains that are needed to help push that water out so that you're not having hydraulic limitations. That's the nuance of centralizing the treatment plant.
But I'd be more concerned about, you know, yeah, if anything happens on that stretch
Yeah, we
of
got-
main,
16-inch
your
main that
water.
goes all the way to that well. So we got 4 miles of water main, so anything
And
can
then all
happen,
your water comes from here.
and that's it, yep.
Yeah, so you look at how weighted that is. If
The
something
entire
happens
town,
between
yeah.
point A and
Yeah.
point B, everybody is out of water at that point. So, and that's part of the resiliency discussion about having multiple sources.
We need more wells.
Hey,
We need more wells.
you guys are all laughing about that now, but you wait.
Trust me, John, we've tried. We've tried and tried.
I know you kept try and try, but you know, somebody's gotta understand that we need more wells. That's what the idea of trying to hook up with with Lancaster down there. You know, everybody broke our balls about that, but Lancaster had all the water we needed. They were gonna,
Not confirmed, but we had 6 potential well sites.
Well,
I know
yeah.
one site was confirmed.
But there's
Good.
nothing,
Then we had
there's
Shirley.
nothing we can do about that now,
Yes,
so
yeah,
it's
it's all
not
in the
even,
past. Water under the bridge.
literally.
I wanted to bring it
All
up
right.
so everybody knows.
They know, John.
They
We all
do
know.
now.
Um,
Honestly, the Keating well has all the water we need, it's just not exactly the type of water we
Sure,
need.
Right.
like I said, we have,
And as John said earlier, you could dig one here and it
Right.
could have another problem, right? They
Right,
already
yep.
know.
we got water, we just don't have clean,
Clean.
usable, ready-to-go water, and that's what we're trying to figure out. If you guys have no more questions,
We can let these guys
we
go.
can let you guys go, and appreciate the information, look forward to that final report with all the.
So are you guys gonna do a option 6, come up with some basic numbers? Okay, so do we wanna do the survey, get people's
I
opinion?
think we should definitely discuss that.
Yeah, let's
because
discuss that
There's
next.
a lot of things that we need to, do we wanna throw all these scenarios at the public? Do we want to try to combine, I mean, we still don't have DEP telling us, okay, you have 4 parts per trillion, we're still gonna make you treat it. So they still haven't
Right.
told us that. And they still haven't said, this is what we expect your capabilities to be as far as redundancy. Because if you have those 2 things, then we can come up with some scenarios on what's gonna work best, because you wanna present that scenario to the public that's gonna work. That DEP's gonna, it might be hypothetical, but we gotta come up with that.
Sorry, just one more. With your report to the DEP, you said you're gonna roll us all up, send a report to DEP. When do you expect that to be, and would we expect a response from the DEP at that point that says you're gonna have to do something? Should we, or- yeah.
We're still waiting on the data. For some reason, the labs are extremely backed up right now, and I think we're having a tough time getting just the data, the results back in. So once we do get that, it takes us some time to pull together the report, and then, DEP is also extremely backed up, and they pretty much take the maximum allowed by statute time to review your report, and then they'll issue you some comments. So before, I would be surprised if we gotten a response from DEP before the PDF applications are due.
I also don't think that you'll get a firm determination that you must do something until the compliance of the 4 parts per trillion sampling, establishing the running manual average. So that phased approach that EPA has published, that is the process for which MassDEP will ultimately tell you you must do something. But it's one of those problems where once you know you have to do it, we've now gone 5 or 6, 7 years down the road, things are more expensive, and also they want you to do it tomorrow when they say that you're gonna have to do it, not, okay, in 2 years. So that's the challenge, is trying to plan for that potential eventuality, but also not wanting to make that move without having that concrete, you must do something.
Right. Okay.
Alright. Thanks, guys.
Thank you much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, if you think of anything else, just let us know.
Yeah.
Call you in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Did I say anything? All right.
No.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for coming again. Good to see you. Do you, do you guys want to roll into trying to figure that out right now, or do you want to press in with the press on?
Trying to figure out,
If we come up with different COAs to present to the public, et cetera, like we had kind of been discussing earlier. I'm gonna tell you right now, this is just my one person opinion on the end of it. In light of this discussion and all the information that we received, I don't really see much of a success rate of getting all this together, data back by this deadline to June to do the SRF funding. There's just an enormous amount of unknowns here. That's just my one person opinion. I mean, to me,
no, I agree with you. I don't think we're gonna get it together, because,
I mean, the real question kind of to me is like, you could break this down into three things. Like, COA 1, do nothing and wait till we get told what to do. COA 2, and this is where I'd love to hear more from the public. I'm very concerned about PFAS. I don't want it in our water. We need to remediate this immediately, and we push together some of the different ways to do it. You know, like I feel like that's what I'm getting. But for right now to come up with something to push it in a month, I just don't see it as a feasible.
no, because there's
There's
a
too
lot of
much
different,
unknown.
you're missing a couple other things. Is how important is the hardness to the general public?
Right.
And then the only other thing is, yeah, we can apply for the funding and try to push it. How important is it to the public to save money doing this? And we don't even know, DEP, I mean, I anticipate with the way things are going, that we're going to have to do this, but until DEP says we have to do it, nobody's gonna.
Well, and that's where
There would be people that might disagree with me.
Right, well, that's
So-
where I'd love to hear from the concerned citizens that I'm not accepting any PFAS in my water, and I want this you know what I'm
So
saying?
it might have to be a multi-step thing to start. Then where do we go with it? Because if the overwhelming general public wants to go down the level of not having any PFAS in their water, then that tells us we have to go that way. And if the overwhelming, so maybe we could still work on something that goes out in a survey form that talks about PFAS in the water, whether people are concerned about it, the hardness of the water, the concerns.
I would.
And then, you know, are you concerned about how we're gonna fund this?
Sure.
Or are
I'd
you
be
just
more
getting it done?
interested in that knowledge from the entire town of what their concerns are. Yeah, hardness of water, PFAS funding, like, you know, those are my concerns too, to be honest with you.
And then
Yeah.
waiting a year
Right.
to do anything?
Well, I don't think we're gonna have enough time, I agree with the chair, that I don't think we're gonna have enough time to push something through that would be successful. I think we would spend a lot of time and effort on something that
Right.
I think that is not.
And we're also, we can't, I need more information. I need more concrete information on it. Still, I understand that from the conversation we had, obviously the DEP's end goal is 0. We know that. However, there's all these communities in Massachusetts that are going through this whole thing. This is like I don't want to call it an unfunded mandate, but it's a mandate that doesn't have
It's
all
an
the
unfunded mandate.
I mean, they've offered some money out there, but like, I just feel that I need to. I don't think we're ready to push something for the SRF funding. However, I am all in favor of getting a survey out there to see what the community what direction they want us to get to drive this ship. That I'm interested in.
So you guys changed me, because my original opinion of the survey was for these options, you know, but you hit some good points with the hardness, because our number one complaint is the hardness.
Absolutely.
So so if we treat just the Keating well, the hardness levels that they saw is only half of what it's going to be. So
Correct.
It's going to double. So
I
the
think we
hardness could
all
be-
can agree the scenario 4 is treating Keatings without the hardness is not even a scenario. I mean,
But we
But
can't
look at the
afford to do
cost.
it.
No, I'm
To
sorry.
treat it.
Well-
Scenario 5, that's $1 million.
No, I'm saying, I don't think, I don't think doing scenario 4 of treating Keatings without treating the hardness and dumping all that hard water into our system, I just don't think that's an option. I think if we have a hardness problem now, it's gonna be doubled.
Yes.
But are people
But
gonna
that's pretty much your only
Want
option.
hard water, or are they gonna want their water
Well,
bills
once
to be
again, I
$500 a month?
So that, there's a survey.
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
And the more we can utilize other sources to offset Keatings, the less the cost is if we're not pumping Keatings at capacity. So there's so many
Sure.
different scenarios that we could be looking at here. But, and for us to come up with something in 60 days, I don't see it happening.
30 days for funding.
yeah, 30.
Downside is,
30
so
days.
you're losing the infrastructure money, the federal money, so you.
Yeah, that's gone next year.
I-
But I understand where you're at.
I agree with you, but I'm gonna be honest too. I think if we put something together and our name came up on that list, seeing that we didn't take it the last time that we had it, I just think we're going to the bottom of the pile. That's just.
We're already at the bottom of the pile.
Well, no, we were okay before, but it's just, once again, that's just my one person at the end here's opinion.
Yep. So I think we definitely need to gather more data.
I agree.
So you want us
Unfortunately.
to work with Capital Strategic to come up with a plan that we can, I think, surveys, get out to the public.
Yep.
And then sounds like Time Bond, we're not gonna apply for funding this year?
It's kind of,
That's how I feel. I don't see the point of it.
I agree with you. I don't see the point of it. I mean, I guess we could poll a few people in the public here tonight to see if they are that concerned about financing and, you know, the difference of $20 million to do a project.
Well, I mean, like I said, the bottom line is
You know.
let's just say we did magically got funding. We still would need to get a lot of answers from DEP and everybody else to figure out the exact game plan, what is best for Lunenburg. And there's just a lot of question marks right now that I don't feel like it's worth the effort of putting the funding request in. I'd be more interested in getting feedback from the entire town of like, this is the 10-year, eyeball for the water department. Where do you want to see us in 10 years? These are the obstacles we have. These are the solutions that we've come up with. These are the costs involved. What's important to you? You know, we need public support to move on.
yeah, so I mean, if they have certain things they would like to see, I'm
Yeah.
not opposed to.
No, I'd love some input.
So, it's me, so I have a couple of comments. Unfortunately, being more dry. So scenario 4, I know you said, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. However, the mandate is for PFAS, it's not for the hardness. You pass the hardness requirements, right? I can put a filter in my house if the hardness bothers me. And so if you go out and say to people, look, we're gonna save this many millions of dollars by doing just PFAS, you're gonna have to, if you don't like the hardness, you have to deal with it yourself. So there is that scenario, just don't let that.
I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from on that, John, but unfortunately, not everybody in town has the mentality and thought process that you do. You understand that we're sometimes just a whipping post here. We get calls of people that are just mad that, that they're washing machines and all this other stuff. They don't go through the process a little bit like that. So unfortunately, we have to kind of balance some of that too. And I appreciate your input, I do, and it is a enlightening option for sure.
So I have one other thing I'd like to add to that, just part of your discussion here, and that is the burden of this money, whatever it is,
Yeah.
can't be on 2,200 households. It has got to be on the entire town. So you have to have a scenario that puts the entire
luck.
town
Yeah.
going to pay for this.
This-
Because their kids go to school, they use the town hall, they do this, they do that in town, all the water comes, everybody drinks the water, right? So, because I think if you continue to try to push the total burden on the 2,200 households, you're gonna run into walls.
I That is,
But go ask for money from the rest of the
Right.
community for
That doesn't
water
take
that
it.
they don't necessarily
I don't think even
use.
legally we could, to be honest with you, just the way that.
They'd have to encompass the district
Yeah.
into the
This
entire
was a-
town, vote
this
to
was-
make.
Oh, we
the
can
entire
do that.
town.
If this was a department of the town, the entire town would pay for it.
But it's not. Thank God it's
Not now.
No, not now, and hopefully never. I
I don't know. I mean, when you're talking these kind of millions of dollars,
You see what's
Maybe it
happening
needs
to the
to be-
sewer,
Yeah, look at
John?
the sewer. I mean,
Right.
Look at the
sewer's
sewer.
pathetic.
all I'm saying is you're gonna,
Yeah, wait a minute.
2,200
Stop
people,
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5,000 households or whatever.
All right. I
If there's a way,
appreciate your input on it very much. Ms. Pease.
I think I agree with Mr. Birch and Mr. Woodward, Commissioner Birch and Woodward, that the survey at this point, to find out what the people want, is a really good idea. I would encourage the company doing it to include a question on there about money. What is more important to you, having a lower water bill or having your calcium treated so you don't have hard water?
Or health, this PFAS involved here.
I'm eliminating.
Yeah, giving them the option of the
I'm not-
hardness
right,
cost,
I'm
not
saying-
PFAS, just
right.
hardness.
The
Yeah.
PFAS is going to eventually probably have to be dealt with, although I'd like
Yeah.
to see the running numbers for Keating over time. But I think that, I agree that you have had complaints on hardness. I know people who've complained about hardness, but if you ask those same people, do you want that water to stay hard and have your water bill be here? Or do you want the hardness treated, but your water bill's gonna be here? My guess from talking to these people is they would say, leave the hardness alone. Yes, they're complaining about it, but if you put it on a scale with finances, people complain about the size of their water bills all the time. All the time, so I don't know the answer to that question, but I would encourage you to include that in your survey. Because it certainly will be discussed at a vote of any actions, so it would be better to get it out ahead of time.
So what if we also do a vote? What if we treat these wells that take the needs of Lunenburg in account, and there is no hardness issue? So that is a key thing. You treat
Sure.
these two, all the hardness issues go away.
Sure.
Treat that well 15 years down the road.
Sure.
The issue's solved.
But how much money would that cost?
We'll put it all in there. You're right.
That's-
Yeah. That's
That's
part
what
of it.
That's
scenario
already
three
option
is.
three.
That's option three.
Well, but you should put all 6 options in if you're gonna put options.
Right.
Everybody has everything.
Well,
But
option
but
three
what
is
he was
definitely.
referencing is that if you do option three,
There's no
that
hard-
removes
there's no
the
hardness.
hardness completely.
I think the
Is-
point is that the questions that get developed are accurate. You can't just simply say, do you want to have hard water or no? Everybody
Well, yeah,
sounds
no.
different. Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
concern.
Yeah.
When you're presenting these questions, what are the opportunity
Yeah.
costs? What are the true costs of the options you're asking?
Yeah.
Andy, I gotta
That's
tell
the
you,
challenge.
I'd love your input on it. If you feel that,
I think you
I'd
said
love
it
to see the
perfect.
questions before you put them out, so
Yeah.
that they're not these, would you like to have PFAS-free water? Do you want to have
So-
no hardness in water? You're just gonna sit there and say
Yeah, yeah.
yes. We have to make sure the questions
I
are
agree with
presented.
I
agree.
I think that, yes, before this survey goes out to the public, we should probably have.
we'll present it at a meeting.
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm sure Capital Strategic is well versed in creating this question.
Yeah.
I want her to write everything that I ever need to write, cause it comes back, I'm like, geez, I didn't even put words together like that.
But also,
You want it to drive true results.
Yeah.
right, you don't
want
wanna
it
have
to
any
drive,
bias in the
like,
question.
no bias in
Right.
the question, you want a true result, you want something that is going to give you the direction in which you wanna flow.
We don't
Yep.
want the political polls.
No,
Would
it's
you-
not a political poll at
Right.
all.
Would you elect the president that kills puppies? You don't wanna have those.
No, we're quite clear on how we have to conduct
I'm
this.
sure.
But we would definitely enjoy having your feedback
Just
and
getting the
your.
questions, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yep. Okay, moving on.
We've got guidance, I guess then.
I think we have guidance. I mean, Nicole, based on the conversations and things that you've heard tonight, I'm sure that you could probably come up with.
I have some thoughts.
There we go. I like it.
I know I have some thoughts.
All right.
Obviously, this is gonna cost us some money, so we're gonna need some thoughts on what that's gonna be as
Well,
well.
I wanted to come here first and hear everyone out before I pulled that together.
Yep.
All right, we're closing that issue out.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Moving on, review and discuss the letter received from the Woodlands Condo Trustees Lawyer.
You and me.
So you got it, I mean,
Right.
they pretty much agreed to everything,
Yeah.
the kayak rack, I mean, I've called DEP, we're supposed to have a meeting. We'll meet you, we'll do something next week, that goes by, we talk, we'll do it next week, that goes by, and nothing seems to be, a lot of people, well, not a lot. Some people, retired, they got new staff coming
That's
on,
right.
so they're trying to get them, in the loop. So I'm not sure what their status is, but I mean, the only thing in here was the kayak rack.
Right.
And, you know, the easement specifically says no structures, so that's,
Correct.
goes to you, doesn't matter what DEP says. That's on you.
So, I understand the reply back from them, and I appreciate that, but the only thing I didn't really like was the date they wanted to
Extend it to?
which was, I felt like, was it September?
September
Um,
1st, I think it was.
I definitely think that's a bit lengthy, you know, as this was brought to their attention months and months ago. So I'd love to, we can meet again with them, I can talk to them, but I feel like that's pushing it just a little too far. I understand the back and forth of the DEP, so maybe we can reach out to them and see if we can just come up with a little bit better solution than that. I think it's just.
What is the problem with, I mean, why do you want to push it out to September 1st?
They had requested, they had talked with the DEP or
No, they
representatives.
hired
This guy Bosley or Hosley or something?
They hired.
They wanted to present something to the
Yeah.
DEP to leave it there, which is when we initially met and they had talked about that, and I agreed with it. I said, sure, if you have something that you can present to the DEP and the DEP says you can leave it there, and then, you know, we could discuss that further. I don't really seem to have too much of a problem with it, but.
But
I'm
again,
just
let's-
kinda concerned with
let's-
like plowing down there, I mean, we shouldn't have to worry about how we plow.
I-
I mean, I think if it does stay there, okay, then maybe just move it over a little bit.
I personally, I would really like to see it moved. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but I do want to give them the due diligence on everything. So I would like to reply back to them. September is just too far away. Maybe we can move this date up a little bit.
Try to get it resolved.
Try to get it
sooner.
resolved
And then-
sooner than
and
that,
then-
one way
And
or
then if
another.
something,
Yeah.
something between now and then comes up, we
Right.
can discuss it
We can
further.
discuss it, but I think I mean, they've been.
Yeah,
very-
let's get
So
it
is
all
there
behind
a
us and get
specific,
it over with.
if you would like me to reply to,
I'm gonna say by July 1st.
okay. Alright, I
Now,
will
who's making this decision? This guy Bosley?
No, he's
So
requesting.
the
the-
lawyers hired, the Woodlands lawyer, or I'm sorry, the Woodlands
Commissioner or
hired a,
whatever.
water resource consultant, yes, that, Horsley, Scott
Horsley,
Horsley.
Mhm.
And I guess from me reading through this, my understanding is that this water resource consultant wants to study the effects of having the kayak rack there, so they reached out to DEP.
Doesn't matter, the DEP in our
In our easement. it
Our
is written,
easement
no
says it's gotta
structures.
go.
I'm just stating you what the letter said, so
Yeah, I
I'll
know,
let-
I read it, I
the-
wouldn't even pay attention to what he's gonna say. I just make some kind of a deal with whoever we have to make a deal with and get it at a specific time and, you know, I mean, we've been fooling with this for I don't know how many years now. Let's just come to an agreement, get it done and get this behind us.
Well, I just want you to know, John, that when I did meet with them, this was several months ago, there was many items on that list that
And
they
they
took
hit
care
a
of
lot of the
everything,
items.
so
I
I mean, this is
understand
in
that, I
our,
read that, I understand that.
so,
in response, do
In
you
response-
want me to just send a response to me?
Sure.
To send a response that we had a meeting,
Yeah.
they want it moved by July 1st? Or
Right.
do I need to, I don't,
you know, just
KP.
say, I don't know on the legal end of things, but
Do you want me to reach out to KP, or do you want me to just send an email
I
and
would
say
just
we
like,
had a meeting?
I don't feel the need to send.
We're requesting
to have a
July
lawyer.
1st.
We're requesting July 1st.
Okay.
If they, for some reason, would like to meet on site again with
Okay.
that, I'd be more than happy to do it.
Okay.
So that's.
And then we'll maybe come up with a relocation.
Sure,
spot anyway.
something,
Yeah.
we'll all
Okay.
work together.
The concerns I saw that I had about the kayak rack is just a couple things. When we were down there with the engineers, they talked about, I mean, the kayaks, I don't know if there's PFAS in them,
Right.
but all the rainwater falling on them, and like anything, it kind of, so my concern is that they're contributing to the PFAS problem. And most kayak racks I see are structural. They put one up at, down in Lake
Whalen,
Whalum, and they put a roof on it. And then you're definitely getting into a structure that's not movable, which I don't know where we go with that. And it's written in our deeds.
It is written in the deed.
So, once this gets resolved, we have to make sure that we touch on all of those items. Obviously, I wouldn't want it to set precedent that more could happen, that if this is allowed, this is.
I think this is a very attainable, easy solution that we will be able to come up with. This is not really, this is not a big deal. It's just kind of, I mean, it is definitely we need to do our due diligence to maintain the zone 1 as is required.
And what is your solution, Mr. Woody?
Is that hopefully they move them, unless for some reason they come up with some magical thing that says they can leave them there, and we can talk about that further. But
If it impedes where Fran talks about plowing and stuff, though, if we can go a little
Once
bit
again,
one way or another.
let's just send this letter to them, and then we've been doing very well working with them. I don't
Yep.
see any reason why we can't continue to do
No,
so
I'm
and
not
come up with some
I'm not saying it's gotta be moved tomorrow. I'm saying let's make an agreement before September 1st sometimes.
He just said that,
Yes,
July
that's
first.
what we just said.
Yeah,
You know,
Jul-
I mean,
July 1st.
July
So I'll
1st.
send
So we'll
an
send it
email,
over
just say
and-
it was reviewed and.
no
so,
problem.
so just write a letter back to their lawyer saying, we've talked about it
Yeah.
and we would like to have them off our easement by July 1st.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do. Okay.
Pretty good, huh?
On the ball, buddy.
Hey, man.
On the ball,
You're
OTB.
right on it today, Woody.
Okay, review and approve upgrades to radio communication system. What do we got there?
All right, so
God.
it's
I know, and
it's
that's
more
a-
money than we originally thought.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was our article.
Isn't it always?
But so this is tying on with the town and fire department's upgrade of their system. So we originally were thinking 30,000. We did an article for 40,000. So it's only a little over. So it went over on one particular spot because we were having extreme difficulty talking down on Mass Ave. Anywhere on that side of town, we have a tough time with. So he added a radio at the town hall to tie with the fire and police radios. So I mean, we could easily drop that and get us to the under the 40,000, but he felt that was a worthwhile addition to our system.
When's the last time we did a major upgrade to the radio system?
I want to say, so when we did the keynote, 2010.
And we can't get those fancy ones that you can talk anywhere in the world, person to person?
Those don't.
So we did an article for 40. We have money in our other upgrade of equipment. If you want to do it, we could. We could downsize this. We could scrap the whole thing. I told him I'd talk to you guys about it. I'll let him know tomorrow.
My 2 cents. I'll go first here.
Okay.
I think the cost is too high. However, I really think that the communication that this brings to us is really detrimental. And I mean that in a way of like, we rely heavily on outside communication. This is just can be a downfall when if for some reason we were in some sort of disaster situation in Lunenburg, we had, depending on what may the future bring, who knows, that having our own source of communication, I do this in the military all the time, is just, it's absolutely paramount. Because there may be a time when we don't have cell phones, and then what would you do? If all of a sudden, if there's just no cell phones.
2008.
Yeah.
All cell phones were down.
Yeah, so.
But I gotta say, even without having the cell stuff, it's, for me in the office,
Oh.
it's very beneficial for one guy who's doing something to say something, and we know what's going on, or say
Then
there's a
everybody
break.
here, everybody here.
We all hear, hey, I'm here, this is what's going on, so when
Absolutely.
the phone calls come in, it's not this texting,
Or-
or you called so-and-so.
God
so
forbid, an
it's-
emergency situation where someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
That brings up when we had the main breaks on
Yeah.
Leominster Road. We were having a hell of a time
Oh,
trying
I
to talk.
heard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, tell the guy to knock about $8,000 off, but, I mean,
What is what is the thing on top of the town hall you said they put up there?
Well, the fire and police are replacing the whole system.
Okay.
So that, usually you don't combine your antennas next to each other. That's why the Sunny Hill Road tank, when fire and police started going up, they were wiping us out. So now the new way of doing it is it's called a combiner. So all the radio frequencies for everybody that's in Lunenburg is tied to this combiner. So no one interferes with each other. So we're gonna put up 2 antennas, transmit and a receive
On the town hall,
everywhere.
okay,
All the tanks, town hall, Keating's, right on the tower.
yeah,
And everybody sticks their radio, the input and the output, into that combiner, and everybody works together. On our Vantage side, we're not paying for any part of that combiner. The town's paying for all that. So I mean, if we did this on our own, that bill would probably be 3 times what it is. So I think, although it is a ton of money, I think by us combining with the fire and the police, we're actually saving, you know, a significant amount of money.
Does this go anywhere to us being able to read meters throughout the community?
No,
Okay.
just to talk. Yeah.
Just-
Well, because is your point being we needed towers? There's no new
Right.
Yeah, I think-
locations to
right.
put the meter stuff on it yet, is there? Doing this project
No.
doesn't give us new locations
No.
for the meters for reading, so.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, we have a
yes, everybody's in the public, he's patiently waiting. Please go, sir.
Well, we're going to be talking to the public about this and what to do with that. And I think it would be beneficial saying, hey, we stepped up and we improved our radio system with the town. We're working together with the town. And we could also incorporate that in your survey, that we upgraded our radio system and we're working with the town. How's that sound? John, does that meet your approval?
I think we've been doing that for years.
We've been doing that for
I
years.
realize that, but we are improving the radio system.
Yep.
And it's been a thorn in all of our sides for years.
Yep.
You know, speaking of that, you know, nothing worse than you go to an accident, you call out, nobody hears you.
Yeah.
You go on your cell phone, it doesn't work. You know, but
Yep.
could we, does that sound unreasonable?
So I do have a question to ask. Is Lunenburg considered a rural community? Off the top of your head, classified?
I don't know,
There's a radio, there's a grant for radios.
I think did they get a grant for the town stuff?
I'm not aware.
Right.
If you have some like inside stuff for grants, then
Let me,
bring it on.
well, I gotta see if it's still available. That's
What-
what I'm digging to my phone right now.
But as this sits, we need to, Mr. Chair, we need to vote to approve? Is that kind of where we're looking?
that's where we're looking.
Let me just say one thing. What is the definition of a rural community?
Well, that's what we don't.
Well, I mean,
The Department of Agriculture had a grant. We got it for a community out in Western Mass, Berniston,
Okay.
for radio repeaters for
Sure.
the police department
Yeah.
because their signals weren't getting anywhere. We do a lot of grant work. So I'm sending an email right now to the project manager for that grant to see if it's still available.
I would be surprised if we were, but, you know,
I think we are. I don't
I
really
mean,
know.
I got cows.
it must have something.
You've got cows, so
I live,
yeah.
it seems very
You're
rural.
right.
I live in Worcester, so this is rural.
And forgive me, so if we do this, we can still apply for the grant to pay for it?
I'm fine.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If we vote on this and a grant comes in, by all
Well,
means.
oh,
we'll-
yeah.
The money's not
John would be
allocated till
happy.
July
This
first
is gonna
anyway,
take
so.
3 months to get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, what do we do about the $2,000 Lapsman?
Well, we
Thank
have
you,
that
Woody. We really
in our
appreciate it.
account. In our account, we have that section in the budget, upgrade
Okay,
of equipment and services, so we can
Okay, we can
just
take it
pull
out
it
of
from
that.
that.
All right.
I would make a motion that we accept the proposal from Modular Communications for $42,387.48.
You're gonna need to say that again, Mr. Bursch.
I do.
Yep.
$42,378.48. And follow up with hopefully, obtaining grant money for it, but
and take the additional, money where we need from the maintenance budget. All those in favor? Aye.
Second.
Yeah, you
Second.
need to second it
Hey,
first
listen, if
before
we
it's
all
in
vote-
favor.
Aye.
We all vote and all say aye, then the
I'm
thing
with you.
passes. But if,
I was even giving John sign language.
He makes the
Second.
most, dude.
Yeah.
I like
Well, I
when you
was
hand
gonna
me
say
the piece
something.
of paper. So moved or whatever. The thing is, when I make the motion, if he says aye and you say aye, this is
It's
Robert's
aye.
rules. You don't have to second. We run a tight ship over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okie dokie, we're gonna move on. Okay, Commissioner, Superintendent, Clerk, Treasurer, Distance. Do you have anything else, Fran?
All I got is, I just wanted to discuss the main break on Leominster Road. The fire department, several, Fitchburg, Leominster, the cities surrounding us were shuttling water to a brush fire. I actually went to the hydrant where they were pulling the water. I saw what they were doing to the hydrant. All bad. And I yelled at them all. And I said, I'm running all the valves. So I took over. But they had already slammed the system big time. They did their fires. I ran the valves the whole time. I probably filled 10, 12 trucks. And then at the very end, I was closing the valve again. All the crews are coming back now. They were filling up their trucks to head back to the cities. And a different guy came and slammed the valve closed. And I saw the huge slam on the valve, on the gauge. So, initial opinion, something bad's gonna happen. Kind of made it through. That was probably an hour later. We got a call, water coming up on Leominster Road. So it wasn't a big leak. So we dug it up the next morning and fixed that. Turned the water on. Now water's come up down the road. Dug that up, fixed that, and then it came up away from that as well, blew in a different spot. So anyway, it came out to just for that repair was like $10,000. Okay, so our hydrant fee that we charge the town is $13,000. That doesn't include the main break on Peninsula Drive. So I think we need to move the decimal over. You know, 130, or if they're going to continue with this practice, I think we need to double it and move the decimal. I mean, we should be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for this. Okay, so that'll happen. As you can tell, I'm pretty upset with it because to me it's
Passionate would be the word.
it wasn't
Passionate.
good.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I called Department of Fire Services. I left them a message. The guy called me back and I told him exactly what happened. And he said, they can't do that. I'm like, yeah, they don't know. So he asked me, is it negligence, training, or I don't know what he gave for another option, but I said improper equipment.
All of the above.
So I said it's not negligence because they're not closing the valve. They just have no idea.
Right.
No one does.
It's not
If you ask
malicious.
the fire chief,
Yeah.
he does not know that he cannot close that valve like that. He has no idea because they weren't trained that way. When they train, he does it. He pulled our main up himself. I told him, that was Mark Burst that did that. And boom, he doesn't know either.
We're not pointing fingers here, Fran.
Okay,
We're moving
I'll
on.
point to it. But anyway, so I talk. I'm saying it's not negligence because they don't know. It's training. They need proper training. So he agreed. He says yes, we definitely need to do training. And then I brought up the improper equipment. I said you should never have the ability to use a ball valve to shut water off. And he said, yeah, you shouldn't be. And I'm like, well, they are. And when I was down there on Lancaster Ave, they were using the hydrant on Lancaster Ave, Kilmer Street. When I got there, the guy had the valve full wide open, right off the steamer port of the hydrant, dumping to the side, full wide open. And he shut it off like that. So he was probably flowing 2,000 gallons a minute and stopped it like that. So for me, that to even survive that with as little as we did is pretty remarkable. I mean, so to me, that improper equipment, he should not even be allowed to do that. So I discussed one. I said I was on the fire department for years. We used to have a gate valve.
Yeah.
We used to go to a Z valve. You know, the Z valve is just a little flapper on there. So water's flowing. It's flowing. It's flowing to the fire. You pump it to the truck is going to start pumping and flip that flapper off. So water never stopped. Always kept flowing. Perfect. Never blew up a main ever when I was on the fire department. And until the new stuff came out, never was a broken main. So he's like, yes, this is definitely a problem. He says, let me call some people, and we're going to figure out how to address this. So I talked to Mass Waterworks. She sent out a post. She says, I got a ton of feedback from a lot of towns, so this is a very common problem. So she was going to contact the fire marshal. I spoke to a water superintendent, Bill Ricca, yesterday. And he said the fire, and no, I didn't mention any of this. He said, oh, we had a broken main, the fire department blew up a main, they blew an entire ductile iron main apart. He says like they destroyed it. So I'm like, and then I brought all this up to him. So this is very common, and I think what the fire departments need to do is they need to go back to the old equipment, get rid of the new crap, and go back to the old stuff that protected. You know, because the adrenaline's going, hey, we got to get water in that fire. Well, you're going to open a valve. Boom, you just blow up something. You have no water now. So the old days was a valve, gate valve. Even if you were going fast, you were still going slow. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was geared. So anyway, so we'll see what comes of it, but something needs to be addressed. And
Yeah.
so I did have spoken with the fire chief, not about raising his hydrant fees,
Yeah.
but we definitely need to do something about that. But when they do training, I said I want to be there. I want to see what you're doing. I want to watch that gauge because they don't know that you just blow
Right.
up a main. You can't do that because they don't know that that's
Yeah.
taking place.
So, unfortunately, fires don't happen every day. And when we have to, when we don't use the system every day,
Yeah.
you know, it's not something that's in everybody's mind all the time.
Yeah. Plus, they
I-
can't see the water in the pipe. They
I
don't-
definitely
they have no
feel
idea.
that where it isn't general practice on a daily basis, that training, there's so much training that we do already. But yeah, I mean, I think you're going the right ways. I mean, going through Mass Waterworks, talking with the fire marshal's office, talking with the fire chief, trying to come up with a solution. I know all those valves don't magically appear for no money. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Fran's, I can sense his passion
Okay.
about broken mains, and I can see it. I mean, I mean, nobody likes to fix something that could have been prevented.
My part that I messed up on, I didn't have the proper repair material to fix that main. Because I never anticipated a 12-inch ductile iron water main blowing a hole in the side. So
And
I
that
didn't-
is that is actually one thing I did want to bring up is like I heard all about the whole thing, you know. But I feel that I am all for stocking this place up.
We are now.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Even the little one that I helped over there on Peninsula, like it seemed
Yeah.
like it was like, man, like I think you guys would just like have a truck to stock this stuff. Speaking of Peninsula, I did get a text from a homeowner there, was very happy with how everything got cleaned up, and he really wanted to extend his thanks to the water department and everybody involved there putting all that back together. They couldn't have been happier, so that's good to hear.
So a little off of that, the main break, a little thing that we started looking into was maybe a larger size trailer, so we can stock it, you know, put all the
Yeah,
equipment on,
hook the
trench
trailer,
box
there
on
you
it,
go.
main break, there
Yep.
you go.
Yeah.
Everyone's ready to hook up and there you go.
Yep.
Everything's
You're
ready.
on like an enclosed trailer? Or?
No,
No, 'cause you'd
open
have to
one,
put the
so I mean, the
trench
trench
box.
box, yeah, so I was thinking like a heavy duty one, cause the trench box is pretty heavy.
No, I understand that.
Like
I
a
mean,
16 footer, maybe 14,
Sure.
16.
But like, when you guys do a main break, like from what I saw is you go there, you dig it up, you expose it, okay, it's a 10-inch ductile iron, let's just say. And it seems like you come back here, get parts and go. Would it make any sense to have a enclosed trailer, let's say, stocked full of parts, or?
So
No,
the
there's
way
so
the thing
many,
works-
so many parts.
Yeah.
So the way it works is 10-inch ductile iron, it broke. So couplings are in the trailer, okay, no big deal. But we come back and say, hey, we need a piece of pipe 63
Sure,
inches
yeah,
long.
I understand.
We'll go cut the pipe, we'll go grab the couplings right
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the trailer would be nice because that trench box is not easy.
Isn't there one out there? Is that still out there? Got a dump on you on it?
Huh?
Billy's? Is that still out
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Oh, he
Yeah.
strapped it up, he was ready. I thought he was gonna take it yesterday.
Yeah.
I want my 6x6s back.
Yeah, I told him yesterday. Well, did-
Yeah, I'm all for that. Like, yes. So the trench box, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and if it means we need to have a trailer so that thing gets moved quicker, yeah, a pretty run-of-the-mill 16-foot type of landscape trailer would be. And I think we should have it because that should. I never would want to come to a decision of like, it's too much work to get the trench box. That
Or
thing-
sitting there waiting
If
for it.
yeah, if we need that thing, put it in. Put it
Yeah.
in sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm with you. All right, so we'll keep looking and see if we can
Okay.
find some good deals.
Yeah.
I don't think they're very expensive. I mean, you
No,
can get a really
no.
nice one for like 7,000. So I mean,
Well, we have that in our budget this year anyways, with the,
Yeah, there's a lot of
Equipment.
equipment that you move, I mean, pumps and so forth, like when, at the end of a break,
That's what I
what
like.
they have to do to reorganize or clean
Well,
their
that's what I
trucks
like. I was
out,
just like that.
everything goes in the truck and it's,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Oh, hello.
after 30 hours, there was no cleaning.
Well, that's why, like, I don't know, like, I mean, like, I keep a little utility trailer with a gate, like the pump, you can just
Yeah.
wheel it, everything, you know, you don't have to lift anything in the back of a truck, but,
Yep.
you know,
Alright, so we're looking into it, we'll see how it comes and we'll bring
Sure.
it back to you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
we have any money left after this radio thing? Sorry, that was my
That was
pa-
already
that was my
allocated, don't
passion
worry,
right there.
don't worry.
That's all I got. So you get the money.
Yeah, the only good news is we got our first PFAS litigation payment from DuPont 3M. So we just got a check in for, I didn't write it down, just about 218,000.
Where does that go?
So that is kind of my follow-up. So we're getting payments from them. Well, this is the 3M payments is broken down over the next 10 years. We'll get 10 payments. The first one was 20%. Next one's 46, whatever, small payments. So
Do we have a total? Just curious.
I don't.
Well,
I
you, say,
don't.
you say like,
Well, I don't. So I this was just their breakdown. They just gave me. Did I put it on yours? Oh, so this was their initial breakdown, but I don't have the full. They don't give me the full dollar amount right now. So for now, I just created a GL PFAS litigation funds for it to come in, for us to have it sit there. So it is gonna be moving in and out of our sweeps account from our operating account, so it's in a little bit of an interest-making
yeah,
account right now.
Say,
It's part of our normal operating account. But something for you guys to think of for the future. But good news is first check came in. And this
Yeah.
one's just from the 3M, so not from
Yeah,
DuPont.
there's like 10 more.
Yeah.
Move the decimal point 2 places and
Yeah, I know.
we're in business.
It's kinda gross how much goes to the lawyers.
I just saw that.
Yeah, you probably don't wanna look.
I don't, but I'm gonna.
Those are our next ones.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Good. 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 Public comment? No. Okay. You're up, buddy.
No, you guys don't wanna hear from me.
No, we do.
No, motion to
I'd like
adjourn.
to hear you say
Oh.
motion to adjourn.
If I make a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
So moved.
I knew it.
I know.